you could fix one thing in the modern church, what would it be?
This is kind of what I was talking, where I go into, is I feel like the modern church divides way too easily. You see all these denominations for no apparent reason,
Yeah.
right? And a part of that is so the way, how do you worship? We'll go with that. Like when there's a song on how do you worship?
Uh, I put my full focus and attention on Christ, on God, and
I,
sing with the music.
okay, so you just sing, like
Yeah.
you're standing,
Yeah.
sing, right? And then there's me, who I'll jump around a little bit, I'll raise my hands and
Yeah.
stuff like that. There's people who literally like run around,
Yeah.
right?
For sure.
But you have all these different styles of worship, and it's like I think one main thing people divide on is how people worship,
Yeah.
right? It's like if I'm worshiping like this and I look over and see that person worshiping like this, then you'd be like, well, that guy's not actually worshiping because he's not doing how
Yeah.
I worship.
Yeah.
That
Exactly.
guy's not worshiping, he's not doing how I worship. And so they make different denominations just based on how people worship. When I believe we're supposed to be united in these,
Yeah. We are one,
right?
like one big
Look at
family of
the
God.
early church, right? It was didn't matter how you worshiped, they all worshipped in the same place.
Yeah.
And that's I think the main issue is we divide too easily. Even on something basically like Genesis 6,
Yeah.
people would take like this argument and be like, "Well, we have to make a completely
Yeah.
new
Exactly.
denomination for this."
Yeah.
But there has to be, and like there's denominations that are so similar they just disagree on one thing.
Hmm.
And so why?
Yeah. A lot of the Protestant ones are like that.
Yeah. And so I feel like the main issue with the modern church is this: we're way too divided on topics that aren't salvational issues. Like, I believe we can have disagreements within
Yeah.
a church and still worship the same God.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Now, there is differences on like, well, if they have like salvational differences,
Yeah.
right?
That's a
That's
bigger
like
issue right there.
that's a bigger issue now, right? And I believe the Bible like confronts every salvational issue in the Bible
Yeah. That's what a
because,
lot of the epistles like cover the ground of,
right?
like the different disagreements in the church. I'm saying.
mm, Like even Paul, he goes to one of the salvational issues is not believing in raising of the dead.
Yeah.
If you don't believe in raising the dead, how are you a Christian? Because our main belief is Christ rose from the dead.
Yeah. Exactly.
That seems
And we
like
too are gonna run.
like so. But again, I would say definitely division. I'd say have let's get the salvational issues down to a
Yeah.
T. And now, if we have minor disagreements, let's just still get along. Right? We don't have to just like call each other heretics for like a different belief on Genesis 6, a
Yeah.
different belief on this passage and this passage. To me, it doesn't make much of a difference.
Yeah.
We're still worshiping the same God. We still believe the same God, right? People just have minor disagreements.
Yeah.
There, there are like different, like again, salvational issues. There's also issues that can lead to okay, maybe we do need to divide on this, but we don't need to divide on everything.
Yeah.
I think
I feel
just
like if you look back in like the early church with like uh Arianism and Nestorianism, like all these different like you had brought up like heretics, like on
yeah,
situations like that where it's like this is we're questioning like the Trinity and like things that are like we all do agree on.
hey guys, can we not spam ET in the chat, please?
Oh geez.
Continue.
My goodness. My goodness. It's okay. It's okay, Smack. It's okay. Um, I feel like if it's a huge disagreement like that, then
Uh-huh.
yes, it does. It needs to be the tree needs to be pruned
Yeah.
essentially. But like you said, if we're like if we're if we're looking at the number six on the table, and from my perspective it looks like a six, and from your perspective it looks like a nine, and we're gonna go our separate ways because of that,
Uh-huh.
like then that's a bigger issue.
Yeah. Mhm. And this kind of leads into my next question, which is why do you think there are so many denominations?
Yeah. That's crazy how I whenever we plan these questions
Yeah.
that wasn't intentional there, but it's crazy how that worked out. Uh, but I think there's a lot of denominations for a few different reasons.
Mhm.
With how long the church has been around, it only makes sense that like there would be forks throughout like
Yeah, yeah.
uh the tree of Christianity, and I think like we just discussed,
Mhm.
interpretation is a key piece of that. Uh, Especially after the Protestant Reformation, like
Yeah.
that was a huge turn from like the the Catholic Orthodox being the only like main church.
Mhm.
And then once the Protestant Reformation came along, it just kind of like shattered that into a bunch of like it was like shattered glass with each shard being its own denomination
Yeah.
essentially.
I think the Protestant Reformation wasn't bad in itself. The problem was now it's like, okay, now we realize we can separate. So let's just go and separate on every issue.
No, that's fair. Uh,
Right. The separation was good
yeah,
in that
yeah, for
sense.
sure.
But then taking Protestantism and then just like now every single
Every single difference needs a new
argument we
denomination.
have is a
Yeah,
new doing. That's a little bit excessive.
and also like as a church, like you're supposed to be able to talk to one another and
Oh
like
yeah, yeah,
sharpen
yeah.
one another.
Mhm.
If you disagree and then you split because of that, like that really doesn't. In the case of the Catholic Church, like the split from Protestants from like the Protestant Reformation happening, like it was kind of to a point to where people were, if they did speak against the church, they were dying. So like that makes sense. But like if we're just disagreeing and like getting
Yeah,
hurt
yeah,
about it, like that doesn't make sense.
yeah.
Uh,
And I think we learn the most from even just like our discussion on here's my view, here's your view.
yeah,
Let's discuss it. Let's find a middle ground.
yeah, exactly. Or
And
even
to
just have more understanding of the
now,
opposite
yeah, now
viewpoints.
we have more understanding. If we just decide to have an argument and then divide because of it, you don't learn anything.
Yeah,
Like that's important. So important for me is I've changed my view on so many different things.
for
It's
sure.
because I learn more.
Yeah, exactly.
If you refuse to change your beliefs because you're so set on one thing, that's a problem. Now you're just being ignorant,
Yeah,
right? I think Solomon goes over this is the wise listen to the wise to become wiser.
yeah, exactly.
Know where you stand, but don't be so stiff in it that you can't accept anything else.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, I think also